Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. So it's a pretty nice day, or at least it has been one so far. At least if you're in the Delhi NCR region, it's a nice bit of rain, made the weather very pleasant. We hope you guys are also getting pleasant weather wherever it is you're at. But of course, for us sports enthusiasts, we don't look beyond much when it comes to, of course, sporting news and things that we want to be catching up on whilst we were getting some all-important sleep. The world of sport, of course, never really sleeps, and therefore we will be catching up with some things that you might have missed out on whilst you were catching up on some rest. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. And we're starting with a rather fitting way. We're talking about advice that Kapil, the man who of course helped India lift that first ever ODI World Cup in 1983, advice that he gave to the current Indian cricket team as they themselves are preparing for the World Cup that is set to be held later this year. Kapil Dev's exact words of advice to the Indian team were: in preparation for the World Cup, it is imperative for the team to foster a collective mindset that centers on wholeheartedly committing to giving their absolute best. The true measure of success lies not solely in the outcome, but in the unwavering dedication to the relentless pursuit of personal excellence. Now, there's some interesting points here which he mentioned. First off, a relentless pursuit of personal excellence. So, the whole point is that you should be wanting to do your absolute best no matter the circumstances, because that is what will of course help the team. Beyond that, he also said it's about fostering a collective spirit. That is also very important, because if you hear any stories about the players who were part of that 1983 World Cup winning side, you know that they had a very good spirit in terms of playing for the team, playing for each other, playing for the nation, most importantly. So these guys definitely knew what it was to play together and to contribute for one another. And that is something that, according to Kapil Dev, is going to be very important for the Indian team in this ODI World Cup. But speaking of the ODI World Cup, there is one particular member of this same team who believes that the time is near for a change when it comes to at least the white ball captaincy. That is, of course, this man Ravi Shastri. Now, Shastri, of course, has remained a coach of the Indian team, and in his opinion, he said that it is time that we start looking beyond Rohit Sharma in, as far as ODI and T20I captaincy is concerned, and for him, the man who should be taking over is Hardik Pandya. In fact, this is exactly what he had said. He said, and I quote very clearly, he said, his body cannot cope with test cricket. His being, of course, Hardik Pandya, saying, let's be very clear about that. But after the World Cup, if his body is fit enough, he should take over captaincy in white ball cricket. Now again, this is something that does seem to be the succession plan for the Indian team, because truth be told, the previous succession plan has kind of been ripped up and thrown out. The original succession plan was to see KL Rahul become captain across formats, but that has kind of taken a little bit of a beating, mainly due to KL Rahul's poor form, but also a little bit of, let's say, apprehension or uncertainty over whether or not he has that captaincy ability nailed down. Now, whether or not he does, we don't quite know that, but what little we've seen, he has sometimes struggled to be a proactive captain, whereas Hardik Pandya has shown more than glimpses of that. He's consistently someone who's looking to make changes within the game, not afraid to take risks. At least based on his IPL captaincy, you can say that that's for certain. And it does seem like, although there has been no official confirmation yet, that Pandya is very much the T20I captain in going forward. Whether or not he becomes captain in ODIs after this World Cup remains to be seen, but it does seem to be the likeliest step that will be taken, because again, Rohit is not someone who's a long-term captain. At best, he's got maybe a year or two of him playing across formats. Whether or not he continues to do that, considering the fact that he's also had a history of injuries, that remains to be seen, and Pandya does seem to be your best option as of now. Speaking, of course, more about the World Cup, but this time the 1983 one, and former India opener Sunil Gavaskar actually had a pretty hilarious story from that World Cup, and it involves him and Joel Garner. Now, Joel Garner, it's worth noting, when Gavaskar was playing county cricket, they shared a flat together because they were playing for the same team, and it is around that which Gavaskar's story centered. In fact, this is what he had to say. He said that Mr. Joel Garner had been my flatmate when I played for Somerset. So every ball which he was bowling in the World Cup final has gone past my nose. I had not been able to touch bat or ball, and as I went to the non-strikers and Garner is walking past me, because I've shared a flat with him, I said to him, "Hey Bird, how about one off the mark for your old flatmate?" I was still on zero. Garner replied, "No man, no freebies for you. This is the World Cup final." So that's what happened. I didn't get any freebie whatsoever and was dismissed for 2. So It's an interesting way really of looking at things when you talk about the camaraderie which exists between many in sport, especially those who play together. But Joel Garner was very, very clear, saying, look, no freebies for you, man. It's a World Cup final. I want to be getting you out. It's also interesting to see that Gavaskar himself was jokingly requesting a bird, as Joel Garner was known, that, hey, man, throw me one freebie, just let me get off the mark. Of course, he did only get 2 runs. Not that it mattered in the end, because India ended up breaking the West Indian dominance and, of course, causing one of the big underdog upset wins for the ages as far as the ICC World Cup is concerned. However, enough talk about cricket and the World Cup. Let's move our attention to sports beyond that, and yesterday's match of the SAF Cup, which saw India win 2-0 to they beat Nepal, which has all but sealed their progress into the semi-finals, thanks of course to an opening goal from this man Sunil Chhetri, who has now gotten to 91 international goals. He's very, very close to breaching the 100 mark, and he'd be of course only the second Asian to get there. In fact, even now he's the second highest goal scoring Asian as far as international football is concerned, and you'd be finding it no surprise to know that his teammates actually find his presence really reassuring. In fact, speaking after the match against Nepal, Jackson Singh said that we find his presence up front very, very reassuring, and we hope he continues to score so many goals, because we know he's reaching that 100. We want him to get there soon as well, and that he can keep playing for as long as it is possible. And we know Chhetri, of course, is very much in the twilight of his career. He's got maybe at best, considering the kind of fitness he has, 2 to 3 years left, but after that he might just step away. Till then, though, we want to be seeing him getting as many goals as is possible. And sticking to Indian football, there was a bit of bad news if you're a fan of Indian football. So the Indian football team were, of course, taking part in the AFC Under-17 Asian Cup, but their campaign sadly came to an end when, of course, they ended up losing 4-8 to Japan in their final group stage match. Now, Group D is where India were drawn, and they ended up finishing third because they started their campaign well enough. They got a 1-1 draw against Vietnam, but then suffered a 1-0 loss to Uzbekistan, and of course these two were the matches that realistically were their best hopes of getting a result. It had to be against Vietnam or Uzbekistan, because Japan, of course, are a giant in Asian football and are consistent players at the FIFA World Cup. They were always going to be a tough task, and truth be told, the Indian players actually played really well in this last match as well, because they were at one point 6-1 down. They ended up bringing it to 6-4. Thereafter, only the Japanese scored 2 more to make it 8-4. So 8-4 might seem like it flatters the Japanese a tad, but really the boys showed plenty of fight, and it is a good sign that at age group we are able to actually compete like this. Obviously, just getting 1 point, far from ideal, but you look at the magnitude of the opposition in front of you, and you'd say that this was, at least in parts, a very, very good performance. Now, sticking, of course, to football news, and this is an interesting one. Ruben Neves is, of course, seen as one of the top midfielders in the world, has joined Al Hilal. Now, again, you'd expect that certain players who are winding down their career would kind of end up in the Saudi Pro League, but Neves is very much one of those players who's in the peak of his powers, should be playing for a European club, and has surprisingly gone to Al Hilal. Now, it's a pretty big move, because again, the money involved was a record fee that Wolverhampton Wanderers have ever received for a player. So it does seem like Neves was kind of being forced to go out, because he only had a year left on his contract, and Wolves were very keen to sell. And of course, you have to remember who it is that Neves is represented by. Is represented by Jorge Mendes, who's also very keen to get good pay packets, good pay deals, and the best deal possible. Now, of course, Mendes is also very closely associated with Wolves, so there's that too. But this is one deal that's really, really surprising. In fact, we will be doing a video later through the day talking about the Saudi Arabian influx, really, when it comes to the transfer market. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, breaking things down just a little bit. Stay tuned for that one if you have an interest in football. But switching our focus back now to the morning update, and we've got some hockey news for you as well. In fact, if you look at the junior team, really, so India are 2-time world champions when you're talking about the Men's Junior World Cup, and the upcoming Men's Junior World Cup, which is set to be held in December. India's draw has been confirmed as far as the group stages are concerned. They will be in Pool C alongside Canada, South Korea and Spain. Now, remember, India had won the Men's Junior Asia Cup earlier this month, but the World Cup is going to be an even bigger challenge. They will start their campaign against Korea on December 5th. 2 days later, they'll face Spain, and then the group stage match, the last one, will be against Canada on December 9th. So, in the space of 4 days, they're going to be pretty much done with their group stage matches. Hopefully, they can move forward and then, end up actually getting a good result in the Junior World Cup for men. Last but not the least, sticking to sports beyond, let's say, cricket, football, in the world of tennis, the build-up to Wimbledon is continuing on, and Carlos Alcaraz, seen as one young favorite, is now through to the finals of the Queen's Club tournament. Now, the Queen's, of course, is a pretty big tournament, ATP 500 status. Generally speaking, is where the top players go to warm up for Wimbledon. He'll be facing Australian Alex de Minaur in the final, so that's a pretty big match up there as well, of two young players, up and comers really. Of course, Alcaraz definitely starts favourite because he is, of course, someone who's won multiple ATP Masters events, has also been crowned a Grand Slam champion. De Minaur hasn't gotten there yet, so it's expected that this Queen's Club final will be a pretty interesting match, really, a good match between two young upstarts. I wonder who it is will win. Of course, as I said, Alcaraz starts favourite. But that's it from us on this edition of the Morning Update with Sports Today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you enjoy what it is that we do, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell icon, leave us a comment, follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and don't forget to download the SportsTak app as well. We'll get all of these news updates at the tip of your fingers. Also follow us across social media, and last but not least, stay tuned to Sports Today as we bring you more and more interesting happenings from the world of sport. But for now, from my side, goodbye.